So, what happens when the life you've spent decades building just suddenly grows quiet? Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful story about reconnection after 50. It's about a man who faced a challenge that is honestly way too common, and what he did about it, well, it's a lesson for all of us. 60%. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many Americans over the age of 50 say they feel lonely. But this isn't just a statistic on a slide. It's a deeply personal reality for millions of people. And it was the reality for the man we're going to call Samuel. For so many of us, this feeling is achingly familiar, right? You can be in a crowded room, at a family gathering, even just walking down a busy street, and still feel this profound sense of being on the outside looking in. This right here, this feeling, was the exact starting point for Samuel's journey. So to really appreciate where Samuel's story ends up, we first have to understand the quiet desperation of where it all began. Yeah, at 57, Samuel's world just went quiet. The silence in his home became this loud, deafening thing. A place that was once filled with the life and noise of a family, well, it started to feel like what he called a museum of memories. And the tough part was, he had no one to share those memories with. And this is how those walls of isolation get built. You can see how these small, seemingly harmless acts became bricks in that wall. Every time he'd decline a call or spend another hour just scrolling through social media, he was building this prison of isolation around himself without even realizing it. And this was the moment it all cracked open. One night, he's just looking at his own reflection, and this single, powerful question just cuts right through the silence. It wasn't an accusation. It was just a moment of raw, painful clarity. And that one question, well, that became the turning point for everything. This brings us to the absolute crucial turning point, because connection didn't just find Samuel. It didn't just show up on his doorstep. He had to make a conscious and, frankly, a really difficult choice to shift from passively waiting to actively going out and finding it. His first step wasn't some big, grand gesture like joining a party. It was small. He just shifted from writing down all his complaints to asking questions. Simple things like, what do I actually miss? Who do I want to become now? And that simple change refocused all his energy away from grievance and towards growth. And this timeline of his first 90 days, it really shows you that this transformation wasn't some overnight miracle. It was a slow process built on these small, consistent steps. Day one was just showing up to his first meeting, absolutely terrified. But he stayed. And that one decision, just to stay, made all the difference. Now, Samuel's journey wasn't random, and it wasn't just a stroke of luck. His reconnection was systematically built on 5 core principles. Think of it like a psychological roadmap that really anyone can follow. This is the core concept right here. For years, his brain had actually adapted to being alone. He had to literally unlearn those habits. This idea of intentional reconstruction became his guide. It was a conscious decision to rewire his default settings away from isolation and towards engagement. And here they are, the 5 pillars of connection that he put into practice: vulnerability, consistency, listening, contribution, and gratitude. And these weren't just some abstract ideas to him. They became his practical, step-by-step framework for methodically rebuilding his social world. So when you boiled it all down, his entire journey really came down to a daily choice between 2 totally opposite paths. The path of avoidance that led him deeper into isolation, and the path of action that would lead him out. This chart just lays out that conflict so clearly. On the left, that was his old life, just waiting for things to happen, living in the past. On the right, his new approach, actually pursuing connection and taking action right now. He had to consciously choose the path on the right every single day. And the research, it confirms the enormous stakes of making that choice. Look at that gap. Adults who actively build social connections, just like Samuel did, report a staggering 70% higher life satisfaction. This isn't just about feeling a little less lonely. It's about fundamentally transforming your entire quality of life. This really illustrates a key psychological principle that Samuel learned the hard way. Prevention requires so much less effort than repair. Rebuilding connections after they've totally faded it's so much harder than simply maintaining them all along. Okay, So, this story is more than just an inspiration. Let's actually turn Samuel's journey from these principles into a practical guide that you can start using today. So, here are 3 simple tools to start with. First, vulnerability. Share one small hope or fear with someone you trust this week. Second, schedule consistency. Literally block off time in your calendar each week just for social connection and protect it. And third, gratitude. Make it a point to thank someone for something specific every day. As Samuel learned, these simple, intentional acts, they are the foundation of everything. And here's the proof that all that hard work is worth it. At 70, Samuel isn't just surviving, he is absolutely thriving. He's fulfilled, he's surrounded by a deep and meaningful community, and he's living proof that it is never, ever too late to make a different choice. And so, we end with a question for you. What will your story be? Will it be isolation or connection, waiting or action? The answer, it isn't in this explainer. It's in the small, intentional choices that you decide to make, starting today.